get going here. When you take a look at this presentation, or if you decide to take a look at the copy that you'll receive later on, you'll see a lot of great links on this presentation slide. Of course, this is also linked to the CSU application, but we hope that you'll reference the people represented here by our emojis. Reach out to us, let us know if we can support you, proofread an application, or answer a question you may have. You know that we'd love to be able to help, and we look forward to working with you this year. All right, so let's look at the nitty gritty. What do we need to get this application done? All right, so first up, hopefully you have a copy of your Woodside High School transcript if Woodside is the only high school you attended. If you attended multiple high schools, you want to make sure that you have those transcripts ready so you can report the information as they appear on the original official transcript. Remember, should you decide to matriculate to a CSU campus, you will need to send official transcripts, and they do want to check to see that the information is accurate. If I've taken a community college course, I want to make sure I have a copy, unofficial, of course, is fine, unofficial copy of my college transcript so I can enter the dates correctly and the grades correctly. Now, one thing that's also really great to do is that if you haven't already taken advantage of the advice that Ms. Maudeville gave about using that CSU degree finder, we've been doing that probably since what, Ms. Maudeville, sophomore year, trying to encourage folks.
I know, I love that thing. It's so helpful.
Right. And sometimes, you find surprising information. You're like, oh, I didn't know this campus had this program, but it was just under a different name. So it's really important that we take a look-see at the different options available to us. And this is also true in terms of those of you who are maybe deciding between two majors, or you're not really quite sure yet the career path you want. You might want to also identify an alternate major. Some of your CSU campuses will give you the option to select an alternate major. So if you're not considered for the first choice major, then you can be considered for your second choice major. So that could be very useful in helping you gain admission to that campus. Number 3, official documentation. So if I have a social security number, or if I have an alien registration number, those are things that you will typically see requested on college applications. So if you can have those ready, that would be great. If you don't have a social security number, that's not something you have to worry about. You can go ahead and just keep on going with the rest of the application. Next thing. Let's say my parents were not born in California and they moved here at some point. We want to try to find the month and year that California residency began. And also that's true for you as well. If you're not really sure exactly of the date, you don't have like the plane tickets or any receipts that indicate when you moved to California, if you can estimate. Sometimes I'll ask students to try to check in with their parents and go, okay, what holiday was it close to? Was it close to summer vacation? Was it close to Easter? Was it close to Thanksgiving? See if they can trigger some memory there. The next thing, we've been meeting with your seniors to help them complete their financial aid application. So we hope that everybody has been able to find out their 2020 annual income for the family so they can include it on the CSU application and be considered for an application fee waiver. If you haven't already checked this out, you will see that it costs $70 to apply to each CSU campus. So it can get expensive if we're planning to apply to more than one CSU campus. If you are eligible for a fee waiver, you can have 4 application fees waived, which would be really great. So I hope you have your family annual income ready to go. Another thing to consider is we also want to make sure that you have an estimate of the average number of hours spent on activities during the last 36 months. It could be work, family responsibilities, clubs, sports, many different types of things. This is where having an updated resume comes in really handy, because then you'll be able to answer this question very easily in the supporting information. You'll also want to note if you do need to pay, if you have either a credit card or PayPal account, those are the forms of payment that are accepted if I don't qualify for a fee waiver. The other recourse that you have is to do an appeal. There is a form that we can send you, so you can submit that to the campus and be considered for an application fee waiver. So that's another option, should you choose to want to try and see if we can access that opportunity. Okay, all right. Any questions yet? We're okay? All righty.
I remind the students in the chat that they can ask questions.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So, the impacted campuses and majors. CSU is a huge system, but it is also hugely popular. You'll note that undergraduate programs at some of these very popular campuses, even undecided, undeclared, those are super popular, and it can mean that it's a more competitive situation in terms of admission. So we want students to really choose carefully, not just in terms of which campuses they select. Obviously, if you love Cal Poly, I'm wearing a Cal Poly shirt here, very happy to know many Woodside students have enjoyed their experience going there. And so obviously I'd like to promote it, but I also acknowledge the fact that not everyone is going to be able to get in. We know that it's, the supply of housing is limited. So we want to encourage students to use the resources available on the CSU website to find other campuses that not only have majors that are, of interest, but also features that work for the students, other goals for a college experience. So please note that while the campuses you see here are super popular and very, in demand, there are a lot of other great campuses, and we want to be aware of the fact that we may need to have a range of selectivity options, just so we know. And you can check the links, and at the end of this presentation, you'll see San Jose State is really helpful. They actually have identified for us by major how competitive each major was. So you'll see the calculation. You would take your A through G GPA located in the upper left-hand corner of your Woodside transcript. You'll say A through G GPA multiplied by 800, and then you can take a look at San Jose's impaction list. So in terms of basic CSU eligibility, test scores, not required, yay. So this is a great opportunity for us to then say, what do you look at? The GPA, that A through G GPA that I just mentioned. The minimum to qualify for eligibility is 2.5. With that said, if I'm between a 2.0 to 2.49, we know that some of the CSU campuses can actually consider supplemental factors. So San Francisco State in particular, because we are considered part of their local service area, they want to encourage as many students from Woodside as possible to be part of their campus. So they will consider students with a GPA lower than 2.5. They will look at supplemental factors for other things, especially like I mentioned with those competitive or impacted majors. They will use that additional criteria. If I'm eligible to apply for financial aid and I have significant financial need, EOP, doing the EOP application may also be an extra way to qualify for admission. Please note that 23 campuses, possibly 23 different ways of doing things. SLO in particular actually starts looking at courses and grades from 9th grade. Fullerton has a direct entry nursing program. So if I'm accepted to their nursing program, I do not have to do additional requirements and reapply. But of course, it is a super competitive process, and they actually have an additional application that requires 2 letters of recommendation. And they have a higher GPA, much higher than 2.5 required for admission. San Diego State has a fantastic theater program, but it's not just about the GPA. You actually have to audition for this program. So those are things students need to be aware of. So again, doing the research, going to the CSU degree finder, clicking on the page to see, okay, what is this theater program at SDSU like? You will then find the additional information. How do I register to do the audition? What's required of me? What kind of pieces? How am I gonna, record myself? All those details. You want to take a look at that right now. One other campus that shows Woodside students a little extra love would be CSU East Bay. East Bay is considers us part of their local admission area. So they also give us extra consideration and would love to have us come to their campus. Sonoma State, they really like us too.
They love us.
Yes, they really like Woodside
absolutely love
students.
us.
Yeah, so Sonoma State is really likes Woodside students a lot. And also San Jose State has been accepting a lot of students. So those are things to consider. No guarantees, but again, we just want to point out that we do seem to get quite a bit of a number of acceptances from those campuses. So it's a positive, we'll take it. Now, in terms of the fall 2022 application, I'm saying this, and I put this in big red letters because we experienced last week a student who selected the wrong application term and could not find a campus to apply to. And that was a problem. So when you're doing your application, please take your time and make sure that you select fall 2022. The other details, again, reminding you about the cost of applications per campus, researching your campus majors and options as early as possible. Please don't forget, you are going to still need to add your CSU campus to your Naviance account. And if you are applying to EOP, you want to let your counselor know as well, so they're aware of that. And if they need to support you in any way by completing a recommendation form, they're going to be ready for that, that email that you send when you apply to EOP. One other big detail, after you submit your application, please check your email at least once a week. Colleges will be asking you to create accounts so you can keep track of the status of your application. You might need to send additional forms for financial aid. You'll need to connect with them if they're saying we need this form to determine your eligibility. Some schools will actually ask for a transcript after January. They're going to want to see how did you do senior year. So it's really important that you are checking your email at least once a week and you're ready to go on that. And again, please remember, we'd love for you to not have to pay extra money if you don't need to. So if you have your family income and size ready to go, you're going to enter that in the information on the application and consider an appeal if you feel like it would be quite a financial strain to submit payment for these application fees.
Alrighty, so when creating our accounts, maybe some of you here that are logged in have already created your accounts, so we apologize if this is repetitive, but for those of us that haven't created an account, please make sure that we're using a personal email. I would suggest use a same personal email that you've been using for all your accounts if you're applying to other systems. You know, you want to track your login information so that, you know, when you have to log in, you're not, you know, running around and trying to figure out what did I use for CSU? What was my password? Things like that. Make sure that we are also using our legal name that is on our birth certificate, on our official documents, you know, especially when we're matching our applications with our financial aid forms. We don't want to have any discrepancies with that. So we don't want to deal with any difficulties with that, right? When we are inputting our dates on our accounts, you know, for example, birth dates, calendar dates, such like that, please do not input the dates manually. Use the buttons that are located in the application. Sometimes it's not gonna pick it up correctly, or you might have some difficulties there. And once again, we wanna just emphasize that the term you're applying for is fall 2022, like Ms. Vasquez mentioned. Once you create your account, you're also gonna see this section that says extended profile. This is very key, okay? The first part is everyone is gonna be selecting first bachelor's degree, all right? Down the road, maybe you're gonna go back and access and pursue your second bachelor's, but for now, everyone's pursuing our first bachelor's degree, right? Then we're gonna be selecting graduating high school senior or equivalent for your educational status. Then the next part is also going to be key. Some of us here have taken advantage of concurrent enrollment courses, whether it was at Cañada, CSM Skyline, Foothill, or De Anza, or maybe another community college. If you're in this situation, then you are going to select yes for the question, have you taken and earned college credits through a community college or university? Okay, this will allow you later in the application to input that information, right? This information is going to be separate from your Woodside coursework, okay? Separate coursework section. Then when we get to quadrant number 1, that's going to be all our personal information, right? These are things that we should know. If we're not sure, then we're going to double check with one of us or we're going to ask our parents, right? But one of the questions that students have been getting confused on is the release statement of the CASP assessment, okay? Every student at Woodside has not taken this assessment, and actually for a couple of years now due to the pandemic. So, and it's also gonna be a little tricky because the option you're gonna select is gonna be the third option that says, I did not attend a California high school or did not take the assessment. Okay, so don't get confused there because it's one or the other. It's 2 statements in one. So you're gonna select that statement. Then for the section of residency, right? We want to claim California residency because if we don't, then we're going to be charged out-of-state tuition. And I don't think any of us want to get charged doubled or tripled for tuition, right? So we're going to make sure that we select that. Please remember to use the save and continue button, right? As we continue, if the button is not blue, then something in that section is incomplete, right? That will allow you to know that you missed something or you have to go back and check something, right? Once again, in this quadrant, we're gonna provide personal information. So if you have a social security number, we're gonna include that. They're also gonna ask you about a state ID. Okay, sometimes students don't know where to locate this, but this could be found on the top left corner of your transcript, okay, under your birthday. So everyone has easy access to that information. A couple other points that are gonna be up in this section is financial information and parent information, okay? All of you are gonna be dependent students if you're born after January 1st, 1999, okay? So for the most part, that's gonna be applicable to everyone. There might be some exceptions, and just double check with us if you're in that situation. This is where we're gonna be inputting our parents' 2020 tax information, family size, adjusted gross income, right? This is gonna be particularly important if you wanna be considered for a fee waiver, okay? If you are thinking, you know what, I'm not gonna be considered, or I think my income is too high, then just go ahead and input the 6 nines as you see here, okay? This is also gonna be a section where you're gonna be inputting your family's untaxed income. Right here, we have information about what that is, because sometimes students get confused and actually put the same amount for the adjusted gross income and the untaxed income, which is two separate things, okay? Here we're saying untaxed income is, for example, child support, disability benefits, workers' compensation, right? So if your family is in this situation, this is where we're gonna input this, which could be found in the tax forms, okay? Then some of you have already noticed that when we created our account, the first thing that took us to our portal was selecting a campus and a major, right? If you have not solidified your list, if you're not 100% sure of what you're adding, please make sure that you select at least one program from one campus in order to advance to the remaining of the application. You won't be able to advance. Note that you will be able to later go back and edit and make adjustments as you need, okay? So let's look at this section of adding a program. When we're adding a program, right, that's essentially our major, right? We encourage you all to use the filter option, right? If we see here, once we use a filter, we're gonna be able to select a couple things. We're gonna be able to select the campus. We're gonna be able to select the start term, the delivery, and the source, okay? For the campuses, just select whichever one you're interested in or a couple, right? Delivery, we're gonna put face-to-face, and then source campus, which it should be like the main campus, right? There will be an option for like an extension, something like that. That is not gonna be available to you until after you are either at the campus or when you're a graduate, okay? Also keep in mind that when you're adding a program, you will have an option if you are in that situation to add an alternative program, because sometimes the program is very selective, impacted, right? So you might have a second interest that you want to add. So you'll do that if that's an option, right? Another thing, when you add the program in your quadrants, you're going to be able to go back and click on that program, and you're going to notice that some of the programs are going to have another section. It's going to say questions. It could be a very short questionnaire. It could be a variety of questions. You're going to notice that the green circle is not going to be complete unless you answer those questions. Okay, so just be aware of that. Sometimes students are wondering, like, why isn't this being completed? Is, well, because that question section is not completed, right? So just check in with one of us if you need support, but just use the filters. That's going to be very helpful of navigating the different programs, because 23 campuses, looking at all the majors, that's going to be a very extensive list. It's going to be overwhelming.
Okay, and then we get to the fun part, academic history, quadrant 2. So you're going to begin by making sure we add the correct high schools. So the very first high school we're going to include will be Woodside, of course. As Mr. Hernandez said, we're going to use the calendar buttons to indicate our start date and our end date. Another thing that's really important, please note that if I have World Studies 1 and PE Dance on my transcript, you're going to need to add a second Woodside High School, but on the quarter system for that year. So that's an additional thing we're going to do to be able to report our grades accurately for a quarter system. And then finally, if you took Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, or a full year of a world language course that you continued in high school, you can actually add those classes as well. But given the fact that many middle schools were on the trimester system rather than a quarter or semester system, you'll need to include a third Woodside High School on the trimester system for the academic years that you actually attended the middle school. Please note, PE, regular PE, life skills, those are high school requirements, and so those are not going to need to go onto your CSU application. So this will be important to note here. You're going to use your transcript to make sure we're carefully entering things. And when you enter the courses, you're actually going to make sure that you use the drop-down menu. So for example, yeah, so after I select a grade level, so I'm saying 9th grade, Woodside High School, maybe it's on the semester system, and the correct academic year, you have to check a green checkbox. That is your save button. If you don't click that box, nothing will be saved. So green checkbox, that is your save button. And instead of typing English 1, you are just gonna start typing ENG. And from that point, you should see a number of choices, and you're gonna click on the choices. We're asking you to do it this way because that is the safest way to ensure that the CSU application is going to identify all of the courses that are approved by the UC and CSU system. And so your application will be processed correctly with the most number of A through Gs. For those of us who haven't delved as deeply into admissions, the number of A through G semesters and courses, that is really important. It's a really important factor for admission. So if I can make sure that I have the correct number of semesters connected to my application, that will improve my chances of admission. So we want to make sure that you use the drop-down menu as much as possible. Sometimes for US history, I might actually have to type U.S in order to see the drop-down choices. Please note, for example, here, when we talk about the course type, almost all of the courses are going to be none, with the exception of AS Chemistry and AP courses. Those are the only two that will have a different course type. So the only honors course recognized by the UC or CSU is AS Chemistry. And your AP courses, you're going to make sure that you identify those as AP courses. Please make sure you are entering courses correctly as they are reported on your transcript. One good thing to note is that if you had to repeat a course, what's really great, if you completed the repeat, you don't have to enter the original grade. You can pretend like that semester didn't happen, and you can simply enter the repeated course for the grade level in which you took it. Yeah, please note this is the opposite of what you have to do for the UCs. All UC applications require everything on your transcript, original and repeat grades. Now, if you're in progress, you're retaking a class that you earned a D or F in last year, and I'm doing it right now, I will need to enter the original grade, but I will say that the repeat is in progress right now. If I took summer courses, let's say I took a course between 9th and 10th grade, I'm going to make sure I add it as a summer option around my 10th grade year. And then your senior year classes, all of them at this point are either in progress or planned. Please note, we have 2 semester courses for social studies. Economics, if I'm taking it this semester, I will enter economics as a 12th grade course. I will say my fall semester is in progress for that grade. And then the second semester will be no grade because you're not repeating the course again. Remember, you're going to be moving on to American government. And then when you enter American government, if you're taking the course second semester, you will do the converse of this. You will say, my first semester grade is no grade, that I'm not taking it. And then my second semester grade will be planned. Okay. All right.
They're wondering, what about the semester that we had pass, no pass? How is that going to be handled?
Okay, right. So there is an option for you to select the pass grade on the CSU application. So you can go ahead and do that. That's totally fine. Another thing to consider too, it's great that you bring this point up, Ms. Audible. I don't know if everybody's received the email that's if students didn't get a chance to change some of their letter grades from last year to a pass rather than having their original letter grade, the deadline to submit that request has actually been extended. So if you are, say for example, on the border of CSU eligibility, and you're like, ooh, I really would like to have a higher GPA for admission, please let us know if you need support. But the district will continue to accept applications if you would like to replace a letter grade with a pass grade. And the consequence of doing that is a pass grade will certainly be accepted as an A through G course. So you're satisfying one of the A through G requirements. Another thing too, as I mentioned, you might be able to raise your A through G GPA by having a pass rather than having a C minus on your original application. So something to consider, right?
Just ask us another question.
Yes.
Can you explain like about a repeated course, like what needs to be added and what is okay to be left out?
Oh, okay, sure. So let's say I took a class and my first semester of the class, I earned a D, but I repeated it before this year, right? Before I repeated it during the summer. So I can pretend like that first semester grade didn't happen. I'm actually going to put no grade for the first semester, and then I will put the grade that I received for second semester for that course. And then let's say that I repeated the course in the summer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add summer coursework, and I'm going to repeat writing that class, but I'm going to only enter a letter grade for the first semester for the grade that I needed to replace. And then second semester, it'll say no grade because you only had to repeat one grade. So there's no label that says repeated course. You're just going to enter the course twice. Okay. And if you're not sure if you did the entries correctly, please note that we're happy to proofread your applications before you submit them. You can actually download a PDF copy of your CSU application and send it to us. Ready. So let's say you have taken some college courses. Great opportunity. Just FYI, San Mateo Community College District has released their spring schedule. So if you're like, ooh, can I take a class for free? I mean, you do have to rent the books, but it's a great opportunity if you'd like to get a head start on taking some college classes. But let's say you've taken some already, or for sure you plan on taking one next semester. You can actually add the course to your application. You just have to make sure that you indicated that you have taken or plan to take a community college class, and then you will see 2 additional screens, one for colleges attended and another one for college coursework. So here in this example, you see that I already added that I attended Kenyatta College. And so it knows to ask me, oh, okay, you already attended Kenyatta College. What class did you take and what grade did you get? So here, this is where I'm going to make sure I'm going to go to my community college transcript and enter the coursework correctly as it appears on that college transcript. So this is what you're going to do here. Okay. All right. So real quick reminders. When you get to the testing section, remember, we've already said we have no CASP scores to worry about, so that's great to go. ACT, SAT scores, I don't need to report scores that I have, if I have them, unless I think I need it to place into higher level English or higher level math. If you've already taken an AP English exam, for example, and passed it with 3 or higher, then you will be able to send those AP scores, and the CSU campus will use that to place you and to give you credit for the equivalent of freshman English. If I've taken AP Calculus already, they can use that. Or if you plan on doing, statistics at community college, they're going to be able to use that grade to be able to say you fulfilled your requirement. Now, AP scores, you're going to need to make sure you include past and future exams that you plan on taking so they can be aware of what you're doing. So the fun thing, you see a link here to past. The CSU application would like to know the month, day, and year that you took your past exams. So what I did here was I linked you to the College Board website that has the schedule for not only the 2021 year, 2020, or 2019 years. So if you need to find those exact dates, you can go ahead and do so. The next quadrant, really fun one, supporting information. So we have two sections here. We all need to complete it. One section may be more than others. So the first one is going to be about whether or not you participated in any special programs. So for example, if you were in AVID or Upward Bound or Puente or Talent Search, maybe if I was a foster youth and I participated in foster youth programs or Gear Up, I have a space to include that. Another thing to consider, as we mentioned, they will ask you average number of hours worked over the last 36 months and to what extent it might be related to your major. And if you've done extracurricular activities or leadership positions held over the last 36 months. So that's the one thing you want to do. The next thing will be EOP. So that's the second category. So as I mentioned, students who have significant financial need. So if you did the FAFSA forecaster, or maybe you've already completed your FAFSA, if you're a really great early bird, and you were able to find out that your estimated family contribution, EFC, was between $0 and $1,500, then you are eligible to apply for EOP if you meet this financial need and you also meet the requirement of being a first-generation college student. You will have some short answer questions to complete, and then you will also need to ask for 2 individuals to complete recommendation forms on your behalf. So tips here, short answer questions, copy and paste the questions in Google Doc so you can edit, so you're not trying to do it live because your CSU application will time out and you'll lose things that you didn't save. So that's one thing. Number 2, you're going to do the same thing that you would do for any recommendation request, right? You're going to ask the person if they have the time to be able to write or complete the form on your behalf. And then when they do, then you can go ahead and confirm the email address that you need to submit, because you are responsible for submitting the correct email address. So type carefully, and then the CSU application will send a link with the application or with the recommendation form to that individual, and then they will complete the form. Please encourage your recommenders to complete the deadline or the application by the deadline. Ideally, if we can get everything in by November 30th, that would be great, because some campuses will go for that priority deadline. Others might be more flexible, but it would be great to get it in sooner rather than later. One recommendation must come from a teacher, and the other recommendation can be another person who has known you in some other capacity, maybe a supervisor, a mentor, someone who has been working with you through an extracurricular program like a coach or something. And there are some EOP offices that will ask for additional income to verify your tax return and so forth. So if they do ask for income information, you might need to respond, and that's where you have to check your email, because that's where that request will be registered. Make sure you add your campuses to Naviance, right? The good thing is I do not need to request a transcript. So you'll see this example here. This student is applying to East Bay, Fullerton, AKA Cal State Disneyland, and Cal State Long Beach. The deadlines on Naviance, because they just went through, some of the deadlines on Naviance are kind of interesting. Yeah, if you're able to go ahead and adjust it to a November 30th deadline, that'd be great. But please note, as far as trusting Naviance deadlines, we're going to tell you to please go to the college website, because that will be the definitive source. So please be careful about that. And then the next thing, transcripts. Remember, you do not need to request any transcripts for a CSU campus, and you are not going to request a letter of recommendation unless you are applying to EOP. Okay, but why is this important to add it to your college list? Well, 2 things. Number 1, all students applying to SDSU, you are going to want to make sure that we know that you applied. So in January, after you have completed your first semester of senior year, the counseling office can send transcripts for all SDSU applicants. We know that it will be a priority for students to have a transcript on file should they decide to accept SDSU's offer of admission. But it's not going to work well if you're accepting the offer of admission on May 1st, and let's say SDSU, as they did last year, if they say, we need a 7th semester transcript. We're not McDonald's. We don't have 24-hour or less turnaround in terms of transmitting transcripts. So to be on the safe side, we're going to go to Naviance, and in January, we're going to send SDSU transcripts for all applicants. But if you forgot to do this, you might not have a transcript waiting for you. Second thing, if you need to order a transcript, let's say East Bay sends you a message in January saying, we want to see how you did 7th semester. Please submit a 7th semester transcript. You need to make sure you request it on Naviance. Sure, you can follow up with Mrs. Zelaya in the counseling office, but you also want to make sure you request it here, because then she will know as soon as possible to process the request for you.
It's going to be key that you do it through your CSU portal, not
Mhm.
through Naviance,
Mhm.
okay, which is different for Common App. All right. So if you need support with that, just check in with us. But that's a key difference of the EOP letters of recommendation.
So here, this is the screen that the students should be using, right? And I think, oh yeah, and then you'll notice it also gives them a deadline. So if you can encourage your teachers, I know I'm a guilty person too on this one, to remind them about these deadlines as early as possible, it would be really helpful. So that's something you want to do. And remember your goal, right? By the end of this, we should see all of these screens green, right? All the circles should be completed in green, right? That's our goal. The fun part, where our other standard college admissions responsive, it depends, applies to the last quadrant of program materials. Yesterday, one of your classmates actually gave me a lot of great information. We were looking at her program materials because I was curious to see what extra questions they were going to ask. And one of the campuses, because she had selected a particular major choice, had all these questions that I'd never seen before from a CSU campus regarding career plans. And I was like, wow, this is totally different. The standard question you might see under program materials will be sort of an acknowledgement that you are providing, accurate course information, accurate grades. Another one is an acknowledgement that even if you earn a degree from a CSU campus, that does not guarantee that you will pass your licensing exam, right, to become a nurse or architect. So that, you need to be aware that just by completing a degree here doesn't mean you're done and you're ready to go, that you may have additional requirements and you can't go back and blame, your CSU campus saying, hey, I can't get this job because I can't pass this license exam. So they want to make sure that you acknowledge that you have responsibilities too. But communicate with us. And yes, you're going to need to check your portals and email at least once a week. Just set aside 20 minutes will be your, college check-in status time to confirm that everything is okay, that no one's asking you for anything. It's really important that you get a head start on it, especially if it's something that requires somebody else's help. Like if you need a parent tax form, that might take more time and you need to make sure you can build in time to ask for that. Or if you need a transcript, right? Sometimes it takes a few days. So please let us know, but we won't know. We won't get communication from the colleges. You're the only one who will know that somebody needs a transcript. So it's important that you check your email so we can help you with that.
So today we reviewed so much information about the CSU application, right? Point number one is that this session is being recorded. So just a reminder that you're gonna have the opportunity to go back and reference it as you are continuing your application. But here we want to identify a couple key resources that you have access to, starting with the Woodside High School A through G course list, right? We want to make sure that we are inputting our courses accurately, right? We are only inputting A through G courses. How do we verify that? Once you click on that hyperlink, you're going to be able to see the approved course list and the subjects and exactly how it comes out on your transcript and how it comes out on your application portal, okay? We have additional tips, a guide. You could go over the impaction matrix. Some of you received this in our financial aid sessions that we've been doing this week, but you have access to that online. You can see the EOP deadlines. You can see videos on the application process. You could check out the CSU degree program so you can start comparing and contrasting, what's a psychology program at SF State versus Chico versus, Long Beach or whatever the case may be, right? Because you want to look into those things. You want to see what are the course selections that you have access to? What are some of the electives? Who are the professors? What kind of research they're doing? What kind of initiatives they're working on? Partnerships that they have in the community, right? Because all that plays a role in your experience in your undergraduate. So consider that. SJSU, San Jose State, has very detailed information about their impaction, and it's breaking it down by what GPA you need for certain programs that are impacted, like engineering, for example. So we wish that all the 23 CSUs had this information, but San Jose State will give you a better idea, depending on the program that you're considering, of what kind of GPA do you need to be in a good range of being accepted. So really great resources. All of them are hyperlinked. You have easy access to them, and we'll send this presentation out this week.
A few links to be able to touch base with us. But since we have a little bit extra time, does anybody have any other extra questions that I can answer while I move over to my CSU application and let you see what we were talking about? All right. Are there any other questions?
There was a question that if a student adds a program to their
Mhm.
application by accident and they want to adjust that,
Yeah.
they will do that in the program materials section. You click on that section, and then you're going to be able to make adjustments to the programs that you've added,
Oh, for the major.
the major. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. And then if you decide to change your mind about the campus, what's really great is that you can also do that too, right? When you get to that one screen, let me see if I can get us there. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. So let's say I am under the screen where I want to submit the application. You'll see that if you decide, nope, you know what, I don't want to apply to Monterey Bay, you can use the trash can icon to delete that application or not take action on it, your call. But what I was saying about sending us a PDF, right here, you'll see the download button. Once you have a complete application, you can download a copy, and then you can actually go ahead and send it to us, and we're happy to proofread it and make sure that things look great to go, so you can have an accurate application submitted. So it's another way to kind of get you some support, and we're happy to do that. Happy to help you out. But otherwise, we hope you enjoy your weekend. Thank you for attending this event here.
Everyone, come see us in D9.
Thanks, everyone.